If you had to collaborate artistically with someone else, for example as a musical duo, what approach would you take, especially when you have both had your own successful individual career paths? Let's dive in and find out. Welcome to Half Hour Mentor. My name's Ian Cleverden, and welcome to my podcast series designed to help anyone who is looking for inspiration to develop their creative skills, whether professionally or as a hobbyist. The creative arts has been the focus for this series, and I've been interviewing musicians, songwriters, authors and actors, but also speaking to some in the directing and strategic management fields of this wide-ranging industry. All of my guests have been carefully chosen, as each of them has a very interesting backstory from which we can all learn. If you're new to the series, please follow it on whichever streaming platform you use and go back and have a listen to the rich archive of over 30 interviews and compilations. In this episode, I have a first for the series, an interview with two mentors at the same time. Having said that, this musical duo are so in tune with each other, if you pardon the pun, that it gives us a great insight into how powerful an artistic partnership can be when they work in harmony. OK, enough of the puns, but you're going to laugh your socks off in today's interview with the immensely talented Yorkshire folk duo Bryony Griffith and Alice Jones. Whilst they've only been together since 2019, they have individually established themselves prior to this time in the folk music world. Bryony Griffith is a fiddle player and singer from Huddersfield in West Yorkshire with a rich repertoire in English dance tunes and songs. She's played in many highly regarded groups, including Bedlam, Witches of Elsick, and the BBC Folk Award-winning Demon Barbers. She's also a senior lecturer in vocals and fiddle for the folk music degree at Leeds Conservatoire. Alice Jones is a singer, multi-instrumentalist and dancer from Ripponden in West Yorkshire. Her background is deeply rooted in the English folk tradition, and the music that she makes instantly reflects this strong influence. Alice sings mostly traditional songs, accompanying herself on the piano or harmonium, and sometimes only with foot or body percussion. Yes, you heard that correctly. She's also known for her research into the work of 19th century Leeds-based folk song collector Frank Kidson, about whom we'll hear about in today's podcast. If you're not familiar with Bryony and Alice's work, I've compiled a half-hour Spotify playlist of some of my favourite tunes of theirs, and the link to that is in the show notes, so go and have a listen. I recently took the brave decision from venturing from Lancashire across the Pennines to Yorkshire. Yes, I know, quite scary, but did that in order to interrupt their rehearsal for the winter tour in which they're promoting their fabulous new album Wesselbobs. Thankfully, Alice had Yorkshire tea brewing in readiness, so all was set for a great interview. Bryony and Alice, welcome to Half Hour Mentor.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
I've got first question I ask everybody is, what's the first job that you wanted to do when you were wee nippers?
I wanted to work at the Little Chef at Grangemore Roundabout. Because that's probably only about as far as I'd ever been.
That's amazing.
Doing what at Little Chef?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe being the Little Chef. I don't know. We used to go there with my grandparents for a treat, and I just thought it'd be nice to work there.
Well, you made the right career move.
I was going to say, who would have thought that the longer job term prospects were being a folk singer?
Well, I also wanted to be a ballet dancer, but I didn't actually do ballet, so that was never going to happen. And then I actually wanted to be a GP. I really seriously did, until they told me you had to do physics A-level. And then I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think that was worth it, really.
Oh, dear me. How about you, Alice?
I turned up to a careers interview at secondary school and announced that I either wanted to be a folk singer or an accountant. They were the things I wanted to do. At the point where I was kind of choosing my exams that I was going to take, I did all right in my maths, actually, and I have done some accountancy style stuff. So I've sort of achieved both the dreams.
Oh, wow. Well, I haven't done any of my ones.
Well, previous to that, as a younger child, I would have said I wanted to be a librarian.
Oh, that's better than Jonah, my son. He wanted to be what they called even? What's them yellow things with one eye?
A minion?
Yes. Oh. Yeah. He wanted to be a minion for a long time.
I don't think that's a job.
Well, could be. You see them walking around.
They wouldn't say that.
They'd be walking around at Disney or something like that, wouldn't they? I would imagine.
Oh, that's true, actually.
Yeah.
He could
So
still do
how
that.
did you get into music then? What was the first sort of steps into music for you both?
My mum is a musician, but very classical. She does choral singing and conducts ladies' choirs, church organ, all that kind of thing. She was a music teacher. In fact, she taught me music A-level at Greenhead. Well, I say she taught me, I didn't actually go to many lessons. A little rebellious at that point. So she actually taught me to play the piano just from being about 4.
Right.
It was like an everyday normal thing, and she taught me to read music, which was absolutely amazing. So much so that when I got to school, I told them I could already read because I could read music, and I didn't see any point in these tins of words. I was like, cat, dog, nah, I can already read and do this.
Give me A flat anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mum taught me piano, which was brilliant, and then I had violin lessons at school, just peripatetic, went through the grades for a bit, and then eventually got kind of fed up of doing that and discovered folk music when I was about 13, and
Right.
that was that.
Well, obviously, Alice, from your point of view, you wanted to be a folk singer.
I already did,
yeah.
yeah. I kind of grown up in a musical family as well.
Right.
Not formally educated. My dad taught himself guitar and mandolin and stuff, and my mum's a singer, and there's a couple of things she can play on the piano. She wouldn't say that she can play the piano, but she can get through a couple of pieces.
Yeah.
So we were always encouraged, to learn an instrument if we wanted to. So I started... I think the first thing I picked up was a penny whistle. Steve Harrison gave me some lessons on that. And then I got the opportunity to play a clarinet through the music service at school, but that was all classical, went through my grades. And I ended up with a really ace private tutor that taught me and my sister and my brother. And he was so long-suffering because, like, my older sister plays the piano, but only does music stuff and freaks out if you tell her to busk something. I was the complete opposite. So he'd give me my exam pieces, and then I'd be playing away, and he'd be like, "Stop!" and he'd go, "That's not what it says." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it sounds nice, doesn't it?" And he'd be like, "That's not the point of your exams." But then he kind of quite encouraged that. He would do improvisational stuff with me as well. And then at the same sort of time I was starting to play the clarinet, I got involved with a community arts organisation around here called Ryburn Three Step. And that was a lot of professional trad English folk musicians and singers and stuff. Right. And they did folk club in the village. There was a music session in the pub in the village. They had workshops and things. I don't think I'm made for classical music. I'm not good at rules or listening.
My trouble
yeah. So the folk music thing where they were like, "Oh, just do what feels right," or you can pick whether you play 2 or 3 of those notes, or you can play lots of notes ornamented around it, or you can play the chords. So yeah, I really took to the kind of folky style, and I've been quite lucky to be involved in that, like pretty much from about the age of 10, I think. So.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I think, that was my thing really, because I just did all the grades on violin and piano, but my mum's the same as your sister. If you take the music away, she's absolutely stuck. She can just about play the national anthem, because she once got asked to play it and she didn't have the music and it was unplanned, and she freaked out and just went woo, and played it and kind of went, "Oh, I can do it."
It's like a trauma thing.
Yeah, and now she can still do that one.
Wow.
But I'd kind of got to about 13. I'd done orchestra and I quite liked it. But then my older brother had started listening to The Mission and All About Eve, all that kind of thing, all sort of Huddersfield alternative stuff. And they all had sort of violin fiddle riffs in. So I used to play them in my bedroom, through the bedroom wall, because he wouldn't let me borrow the tapes.
Right.
Tapes? Oh no, that's how old I am.
So he was playing the records and you were playing along.
Yeah, and I was playing
along
in my bedroom. And then that sort of led to the Levellers, and then went to Huddersfield Library, exhausted them of any CDs that they had, Fairport Convention, Steel Eye and all that lot. And I just started playing along with that, and then gradually discovered that it was a real thing that I could actually do. And that's when I started getting I was probably about 14, 15, started stamping my feet at my violin teacher going, "Oh, you don't understand me, I just want to play folk music." And then he turned up one day with a Scott Skinner book and was like, "Right, if you want to play folk tunes, here you are."
Wow.
And the Scott Skinner stuff is like properly printed, highly ornamented. Some of it's like grade
But
8
you could read
standard.
anyway. So.
Well, I could read it, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's like, "Right, well, we'll work on these." I was like, "Oh, no, that's not quite what I had in mind." But then I joined Bedlam Cayley Band when I was about 15, and that was that was the start of it, really.
Fantastic. So how did you two get together then? When was the start of that?
Well, for a start, we've been aware of each other for years.
Yeah.
And that's not... I wasn't an actual stalker, but Bedlam.
This does sound like it could be getting quite romantic at this stage.
A little bit, doesn't it, actually? I was a big admirer of Bedlam. I've always been into ceilidh dancing. That was like one of the things that kind of got me into the folky scene around here.
Yeah.
Love dancing. And like Bedlam, because... I'm used to hanging out with sort of people that were my mum and dad's age, down the pub at the sessions and stuff. And then this ceilidh band turn up and you're like, oh my God, they're really cool and they're like really young. And you did a Sidmouth late night extra. And I think, and that was a really big deal, wasn't it? Because you were like,
oh yeah,
yes.
I think that was 1997. I remember I was at uni in Hull, and Mac, who was the dad of Ross and Drew, who were in Bedlam with me, stepdad of my now husband, Will, he rang me up in uni and went, "You're never going to guess what?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You've got an L&E at Sidmouth." And I was like, oh, like absolutely career making, it felt like at the time for a ceilidh band. And and then you came along to that, didn't you? I don't know
Well, I doubt it. Sort of on the outskirts.
I probably did know you were there, because I would have said hiya.
Yeah,
we knew each other.
Yeah,
just from being.
Well, there's a lot of people in like
your paths would have crossed in the musical field.
Yeah, but actually, the moment when it happened, I think, was you and Kate were going to revive a project and asked me to be involved in that.
Yes.
Which was the
Theatre Ballads, which I'd done with Esther. Yeah, so I'd been involved in a project called the Theatre Ballads with Esther at the Boo with Kate Loxley, and we'd also done, John Kirkpatrick had been involved, and Ewan McLennan. We'd had some funding to do some of it, and then that kind of dried up a bit, and we couldn't really pay everyone to do it. So me and Kate decided we would carry on, and we had puppeteers, and there was also, it was kind of a show to illustrate some of the really big broadside ballads. And
so people didn't get too bored during the songs. They had something to watch.
Bit of visual distraction from the...
Yeah, so actually before that, we'd been talking at Sidmouth, and I'd already been thinking, it'd be good to work with Alice, because we were both doing solo sets at the time around various festivals, and both drawing on the same sources, the Yorkshire songs, Frank Kiddson, all that kind of thing.
Eyeing up Frank Kiddson, were you?
Obviously, I was not after your man. But we'd been chatting about it then. I'd been thinking, well, that'd be a good idea. So then when we were looking for someone else for the Theatre Ballads, I suggested Alice. And we were going to do a gig at Todmorden Folk Festival, but for whatever reason that didn't end up happening.
Well, Kate had to drop out, didn't she?
Yeah.
So it turned into, we didn't have a spot for this Theatre Ballads gig, and then Esther said, right, well, I'm actually going to just have you as a double headline, so it's 2 solo female artists. Esther's a big supporter of female musicians and artists, and trying to sort of redress the balance on festival bills and stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, that was one of the conversations we were having when you were thinking maybe we should work together, because we were both saying, working as solo female artists, you kind of don't get the same opportunities, and it. People can tell me they've had other experiences, and that's fine. I don't think we do necessarily get the same sort of opportunity. You're less likely to get booked for a main stage festival spot than a fellow with a guitar is, for example.
Really?
Because they'll say to you, I'm just not sure you can hold the interest as a solo act on the main stage. And then I'm looking at the bill and going, there's quite a few solo acts that you've got headlining your concerts. And, I'm not saying that... there are reasons for, people being able to shift more tickets than maybe someone else's. But we thought ganging up might help.
I think we were both high enough profile to be doing biggish solo gigs. Yeah. And I kind of always got the feeling people were kind of going, what, just you and your fiddle?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I was like, well, the same as that man and his guitar, but on a fiddle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we were coming from, thinking if we... ganged up together.
So when was this?
So Esther then said, can you do this double headline concert, and we'll call it Sounds of West Yorkshire,
which we thought was risky.
Which I thought was a bit funny, once we got over making fart noises at each other.
And your first concert's in Lancashire.
Ooh, we were on the Yorkshire side, I'll have you know.
Split down the middle.
Was that Todmorden 2018, I think.
19.
No, because then we did Sidmouth 2019. Because
They were
2020
in the same
was...
year.
Were they?
Yeah, because I was pregnant at both of them and I wasn't pregnant for longer than a year.
Yeah, I think we defer to remembering those
I
dates.
remember.
Guess who didn't want to be a doctor?
So the plan was just to do 2 bits of solo set, but we decided we would collaborate on some of each other's. So I played a bit of fiddle on some of Alice's stuff, and you put harmonium on Cropper Lads and stuff like that. Yeah. And it went down really well. And we just thought, well, that worked. And it seemed really, not easy, but it was quite straightforward.
Yeah.
Working on each other's stuff, because we're into the same sort of songs and similar keys for voices.
Yeah.
And with the harmonium, we've got all the chordy stuff and the guitar, and then I can put on harmonies with the fiddle. And
that's the bit for me that really stands out is your arrangements, because I first came across you earlier this year at Costa Festival in Ibiza,
yes.
and at the Infinity stage out by the pool. Sounds like we've got a story about that one.
Alice's sunglasses.
But the thing is that there were 2 things. It was the arrangements of the songs that you did. So, there's a lot of pure folk songs, there's a lot of tradition that's in there, but done in a really different way. But also the humour that you put across, because just the way that you have the banter, even when sometimes things go slightly as you wouldn't anticipate, it's so funny, and you're probably one of the best that I've seen in actually dealing with that. So tell us about, we'll talk about the stage bit in a bit, but tell us about the interpretation. So we talk about Frank Kidson, for example, there's a lot of the work there. Yes. We wondered how long it would take before we get into Frank Kidson. But where do you start when you've got a book or you've got some sheet music that's got an old broadside ballad in or a folk song? How do you go about interpreting it?
Do you know what? Usually I'd say... when you come across the song that you start working on, probably what you've done already is gone through that book 10 times, put post-it notes in, going, I like this one, this one, then gone back through it again and gone, oh, that's awful, why did I put it there? And I've ignored this one and moved the post-it notes about 10 times, and then settle on a thing that sort of grabs your attention. We're very... tune focused, and as far as the words go, looking at the words that go with the tune we've chosen, it won't limit us to then looking at other versions of words to kind of meet what we think is an exceptional tune.
So is it the melody that captures your imagination first then?
It depends. It just depends what it is, isn't it? Because, like Alice was saying, it depends what day you look at it as well. If you've got an idea in your head that you're looking for a miserable song, you might flick through and go, oh, wow, that's utter misery. I love this song so much. Let's do this.
That'll suit us.
Yeah. Or some days you might be after something that's got a great chorus that, you can do at folk clubs, and something else will jump out at you. So I think it just depends when you're looking. But I think for us, it is the tunes. So if there's an alright tune, we might just see if there's another version or mix and match a little bit. And I used to be afraid of doing that. I didn't think we were meant to do it. Going back like 20 years when I used to sing with the Witches of Elsick, we started making little different versions of stuff that weren't just a song that we'd learnt from someone else. And a couple of, well, shall we say, probably older men at folk clubs were coming up at the end and going, oh, I can't believe you've done that thing to that song. And we were going, well, we have. And I kind of always felt like, oh God, we've ruined this song, we've done this thing to this sacred item.
But it's been going on for centuries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is how you get all these versions, and it took me quite a while to go, right, no, it's fine.
Yeah, and I feel very lucky for the background I've had, because of the people around that I was spending the time with that were musicians and singers were doing that with all sorts of stuff. So, I'd be like, I'd turn up at folk club as a, say, like 12, 13-year-old. They started encouraging me to sing at folk club, which I didn't realise a lot of people wouldn't do because they were so intimidated by this quite impressive lineup of pro folkies that were the residents. And I'd be dead chuffed because I'd found this song that I wanted to sing and it was quite interesting, and it didn't seem like many people had recorded it, and then I'd get up and sing it, and then John Adams would come up to me and be like, oh yes, I recorded that with Mucker and Wakes, and Pete would be like, oh, I wrote the fourth verse of that, and like everybody knew it, and they all sort of like had a hand in creating this song, and that's when I found out quite how much some of the people were fiddling with stuff. And then of course they'd tell me the stories about Nick Jones and how there's so many of the broadside melodies he just made up, basically, even though some of them already had quite established melodies and stuff. So I think I've sort of been brought up knowing that was kind of all right to sort of fiddle around with stuff. And in terms of we'll both have an ear out for a good tune, that is quite a priority. But actually, if we do find a set of words that we go, oh, that's really interesting, or it might be a sort of a unique setting of the words, we'll then go out and see what versions of tunes are available, like collected in Yorkshire,
because there might be different versions knocking around of the same
exactly
song.
If it's tune led and that's why I've chosen it, and the words, some of the words, don't seem right, we could go and have a look at different verses and curate the words. And if it's the words that attracted us to it, then sometimes we'll go and look and see what other tunes we can find to go with it.
But I mean, there's so much stuff available, it's almost made it more difficult. Because I think, when I was younger, I maybe had 2 songbooks. Yeah. And I would just kind of find a good song in there and do it. And it didn't really matter where it was from or what it was, if it was all right. And I thought it was quite good.
Slightly more books now, haven't you?
I've got slightly more books, yes. I'm a little bit obsessed
like
with
a
books.
house full.
A library of books, yeah. So you'd kind of go, all right, well, there's that song. Yeah. Maybe there's another version in this book. Maybe I'll add that verse. Now, with the internet and, actually being able to go, go to the archives, for example, on the Vaughan Williams Memorial Library, so you can see what book it's in. It doesn't give you the song. You can see what book it's in, basically. Go on eBay, go, there's the book for 99p. Next day, I've got it.
You've got 3
and I've
new
got
books.
the song, yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is, and, you couldn't do that before.
No, it was finding which library might have it in stock somewhere.
Exactly. And so actually now it almost makes it more difficult for yourself because you've got too many options.
Yes, of course.
I will just add, though, that it is a mix of stuff in terms of there are things that we've just got from the collected version of it. It's not. Oh yeah, we don't always mess around with all the things. Some of it's just dead straight. The thing that might be, it might be a slightly niche version of a thing, but it's come from the collected works, and then some of the other stuff we do like play around with.
And from source singers as well, from albums, from other recorded. It's not just all from books.
If you've heard a version of that somebody's done, Steel Eye or whatever, perhaps, and you go, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've got quite a lot from John Greaves, haven't we?
Yeah.
Singer from Near Whitby, he's brilliant. He's got a massive collection of songs.
And you're stealing all Will Noble's songs.
Will Noble, yeah. Yeah.
So what about the musical side then? So if you decided on the song, you think that'll work. Yeah. How do you work on your arrangement?
The thing is, with the first album, we were slightly restricted because there was some of the stuff we'd prepared to do a concert. We did like an hour's worth of concert, didn't we, together at Sidmouth? Yeah. So we had a fair bit of material, but then there was this point during the lockdown when Bri just went, should we try and record an album? Because, we didn't know if we were ever going to gig again,
Well, that's right, nobody knew.
We really didn't
got
know
this potential stuff, shall we do an album? And actually the stuff that we had available that we'd worked on, we then actually didn't record quite a bit of that, and then went so Yorkshire niche from that, whereas it had always been a bit of an aim. It became like the mission, and what we were doing there was sending each other recordings of, so I think there was one that, so say Wanton Lasses, I had I'd been looking at that for a couple of years actually, and then came up with what I thought was the right thing for the tune, because what I did was changed it, the tune that was stated as the right tune, I changed it into a minor key, sent it to Bri, and then she sent it back with all this pizzicato on it. Like, it sounded absolutely amazing, and I'm not even sure that you thought that you were going to actually do that.
The reason that I did pizzicato on it was because it was lockdown. I was just in the house with a fairly small baby, really. Mary was only 5 months.
Was it yours?
Went into lockdown. Just found it. So it was very intense in the house. The 4 of us, not Alice. Obviously, she was in a mum and dad attic. So once everyone was in bed, I'd go and sit in the kitchen because that was single later, but it's not there anymore, it's been knocked down, but just the downstairs kitchen that didn't have any bedrooms above, so I'd just go and shut myself in there and very quietly pluck away, sort of finding...
It's the way you could practice.
Yeah, that was the way I could practice, so I sent it to Alice like that.
That's amazing!
So it stayed like that.
Happy
so
accident.
There's a couple that are like that, actually.
Yeah, and then we kind of like... I came up with this little riff on the harmonium, and then we were kind of coming back and forth, and you were like, well, what if we share verses? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be really cool. And then you're like, oh no, what if we share lines? And I was like, yeah, what a great idea. And we were kind of doing this thing, and we recorded it, and it was amazing. And then it came to the first gig, and we were like, why did we do this? What stupid idea is this? It's quite like...
who's going to do that one? Who's going to do this one?
Well, and even now, sometimes I go, oh, it's gone quiet. And they're like, oh, that was my line. I didn't sing.
And also the chorus changes as well halfway through. It is ridiculously complicated. But we discovered that even with all of the technology available during lockdown, you couldn't actually practice together over Zoom or anything because of the lag. It just didn't work. Mobiles kind of cancel each other out, don't they, when there's a noise, so you can't hear each other. So what we actually discovered was that landlines were the best. If you just put your landline on loudspeaker and, well, in my case, put it on the kitchen floor.
Yeah, lie on it.
Yeah, and you could actually hear each other and play along in real time. So that's what we did. We nearly called the album Red Wine and Landlines, didn't we?
Oh, what a title that would be.
I know. We were mainly drunken on the phone.
We decided to steer away from the wine box reference.
Fantastic.
But we sort of have kept doing it like that now. So if I find a song, I'll just record it and send it to Alice, and then she might send it back with some guitar on, and then...
So with the new album then, Wesselbobs, that you've got, which is a winter album, what approach have you taken with that? Is it the same? Is it different?
It's very much the same. But there's an aspect, because Bry does play the piano, plays the piano very well, better than I play the piano. There was one or two where, when you were working them out as a song for you, you'd actually been playing them on the piano. Yeah. So one of the arrangements on the Wesselbobs album, actually, the chords you put with it were A's, and I was like, just tell me what chords you're playing. And obviously, I have to play the harmonium differently, so I couldn't sort of just steal what Bryony had done and use that arrangement.
It's a different style of playing that you need on the harmonium.
Totally. Yeah, well, you can't press as many keys down because you have to pedal faster.
It makes my bum wobble too much. Wobble myself off the chair.
Well, we've all done that. So like that one, for example, it that was like all Bry mostly, and then I kind of went, oh, I want those chords, they're amazing, and I worked with that. There was other things, the footmarks that I traced to little footmarks in the snow, because that started life as a music hall song. When I first started researching sounds posh, doesn't it? I basically just went down a massive rabbit hole with it, and managed to get hold of the 1875 published version of it from the actual music hall.
Well, that sounds like proper research to me.
Well, that's where I ended up with it. There was a lot of things. Yeah, I was so excited. I ended up with people from the British Music Hall Society getting involved in it, and all sorts of things. It was a broadside I'd found in the Kidson collection. That's Frank Kidson. And I'd worked it all the way back to this music hall song. I came round to yours for a practice, and I was like, I really want to do it. It's a snowy song where nobody dies, so like that's a happy one. Yeah, that's festive. And then I can't remember playing it to you, and you were like, is there any way of making it less music hall-y? And I was like, I knew it was too music hall. And then that led me to find some other source singer versions of it, and then this Yorkshire source singer, Frank Hinchliffe, who had a fragmentary bit that was collected from him, and then it became the thing that it is now. But like that, for example, we very rarely actually have an incident where one of us comes up with a thing and the other one goes, yeah, I don't really like that. That's the closest we've come to it. But I think you knew that I was unconvinced as well.
Yeah, I think so.
So you were like, yeah, I agree.
I knew there was more work to be done.
Yes, yeah. And then I kind of took that away and worked on it on my own quite a lot. But then there were things like Rip and Sword Dance as well. That's based on your arrangement.
Well, yeah, I already had an arrangement of it, because I run Shepley Singers. That's a 4-part a cappella choir. So I've got a lot of... Well, we have a May repertoire for when we used to do Shepley Spring Festival, and a winter repertoire. So I've got quite a lot of 4-part arrangements already. So I sort of nicked a little bit of that, so the harmonies and that kind of thing. But another one that I wasn't sure about was the Ollins and the Ivin.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, that was the other one.
So that was a tune that was sent to Francis Collinson. The Holly and the Ivy, or the Holly Bears a Berry, was sent to the collector Francis Collinson from a lady called Mrs. Howarth, who was from Huddersfield. So I think I'd seen it on an archive search that it was Huddersfield, and then when we went down to Cecil Sharp House to do a gig, I saw the actual original, and it just said it was sent to him by this lady from Huddersfield, and I kept humming through the tune, and I was like, oh, it's just a bit twee.
You kept saying to me, like, I'm not really sure about it.
Not
I think I hate
convinced.
it.
But then I'd just be like cooking some tea or something, and it kept popping back in my head, and I was like, ah. Anyway, so I sort of got an arrangement just of the song and the words, changed it to Ollins and Ivin, which was, well, just fancied doing that.
It's
really.
Northern, isn't it?
No, Ollins is Holland.
So is that
Ivin.
sort of a Yorkshire dialect, is it?
Yeah, Ollins. If
yeah.
you see Ollins Lane, well, it's usually spelt with a H, isn't it? There's Hollins Lane just up the road, so that's Holly Lane. But I couldn't say Holly every time. It was the Holly.
Yeah.
So I just like to say Ollins instead. It's much easier. Anyway, so
Sing it as you say it.
Yeah, exactly. So I got that version, sent it to Alice, and went, right, if we're going to do it, this is how I think it's going to be. And then she just sent it back with this awesome funky guitar part on.
You played it on piano though, hadn't you?
Oh,
when you sent it to me. Yeah. But then you did all that like syncopatey stuff, and I was like, ooh,
That's a great track.
I like that now.
Really, really well done.
So yeah, I guess we sort of encourage each other to do the best thing we can with the songs that we find. I don't think there's many we've totally just poo-pooed, are there?
I don't think any.
No.
And did the arrangements change when you play live as opposed to the recording?
Don't know yet. This is the problem.
You'll find, stay tuned to next week's episode.
I will say there's been a couple of times the last few weeks rehearsing, because we've not been able to get together as much as we'd like to be able to before the gigs.
Yeah. So just to make it clear, we're recording this.
We're
recording this just before your tour.
We've had lots of practices since though, and what we found out in those practices is that we've both been listening to our own CD, going, I don't remember doing that, and having to sort of learn some bits that we did in the studio. But then we recorded it in June. And it's not been Christmas. So, learning the songs has been a discovery in some places.
Well, and also because, the first album, A Year Too Late and a Month Too Soon, we recorded that straight out of lockdown, basically. And we were rehearsing that distanced from each other in a freezing cold gym, your friend's gym. We borrowed,
with a bottle of red wine, lying on listening to a landline.
That would have been nice. No, we did distancing. We had masks on. Masks. It was freezing cold. Windows open.
We each had our own little tea urn.
Yeah, we really did. And so when we actually recorded it, we'd barely actually been together, the first album. And then this one, we'd had time to sort of more or less decide what we were going to do, but I think we decided, with it being a sort of a more wintry seasonal album, we didn't mind so much if it had a bit of, overdubs and stuff, or some extra harmonies and things like that, just to make it sound nicer. So then my decision now is that I have to decide which bit of fiddle I'm going to play live, or which bit is the original line that I decided I was going to do, or which bit I can actually play while I'm singing at the same time. So it's been that's taken my time up, deciding which bit to do. And also some, like the Hagmina song, I mean, we've got completely different voices, but there is something odd that happens when they go together, that they do sound really similar.
Yeah.
I couldn't actually tell which was my line or which was the harmony.
Problem.
So is that me or is that Alice? I honestly couldn't tell. So, anyway.
People need to get onto your tour and have a listen to that. Yes. What's the future after you've done the Whistle Bobs tour over the winter? What's the future like?
World domination.
Quite right.
I want to work at the Little Chef.
Yeah, I want to be an accournt.
Resurrect the Little Chef.
There's not so much work.
I don't know. We'll just actually, we're going to get some new material together just for general gigging that's not seasonal.
Yeah.
because obviously we're going to try and stretch this out till about March. It'll probably still snow around ours at about April.
That's the rule.
It could be a challenge at the summer festivals.
Yeah.
Well, no, somebody suggested that we do a Christmas event at Sidmouth.
Oh, yeah, we'll do
Apparently
that.
they have had one before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Christmas
I'm
time
up
at
for that.
Sidmouth.
It's the future.
Yeah.
I know,
Absolutely.
Have our half Christmas.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Oh, superb. Well, wish you all the best with that. Time is marching on as it always does in these discussions. So
we talk quite a lot.
I'm quite right too. That's what podcasts are all about. I've got one final question I ask all of my guests, and that is, knowing what you know now and everything that you've learned in your musical joint careers that you've done and separately, what one piece of advice would you give your younger self that you talked about, whether it was thinking about Little Chef or thinking about...
Well, yeah, because they've all closed, haven't they? I would say well done for not going and being a chef.
Yes.
But no, actually, seriously, I would tell myself about 20 years ago to actually make the solo album that I wanted to make then and go for it, because too many people went, no, who would buy an album of just you playing the fiddle? And I went, oh, all right then. And didn't do it, and then it took me another 15 years to do it, and I wish I had just done it, because it would have just, I don't know, set me up a bit more for the career I wanted as English fiddle player. And I did a lot of things for other people, and I played with other people's bands for longer than I should have done, really, instead of pursuing what I wanted to do. But then I might not be here doing this now, which I'm really enjoying. So I kind of have this thing of have no regrets. You don't know where you would be if something else. It's like sliding doors, isn't it? You don't know.
It's that fork in the road that you've...
So I'm very happy with doing this now with Alice, so maybe that wouldn't have happened if something had changed.
Be like a superstar solo artist.
I know, I could be really rich and famous.
With your special riders that you...
Yeah.
Absolutely. How about you, Alice?
Well, so it freaked me out when you asked me this, because I was just like, I'm not really sure, because there's so much advice I probably need now still. I'm the sort of person that shouldn't be giving people advice, let alone my younger self.
I would advise you not to talk to your younger self.
For fear of corrupting her.
Leave her alone.
That's good advice, thank you. And I was going to say something about being less bothered about what people think, but I'm not actually sure I was bothered what anybody thought. So actually, what my answer is, my advice to my younger self would have been to maybe come up with some sort of business plan, some sort of like financial plan, or like just a way of kind of investing a bit more in myself, like in a grown-up way, so that like I paying for albums and stuff, it's quite expensive. There are things that I could have been doing from a younger age that would have put me in a financial position to be maybe able to invest in more things now. And, especially now at the moment when you kind of got to be your own like PR person, and you've got to do all your own videos and social media and all these kinds of things. And I see people investing in these amazing cameras and stuff, and like all sorts of fancy recording equipment, and they just knock things off at home and things like that. Maybe if I'd given myself a business plan and been a proper accountant type person.
But then you wouldn't have as many sequin dresses.
Yeah, that actually is an issue. I mean, the buying the sequin dresses thing is an issue.
Which I think probably would form, if everybody, when they see you live, would form a whole new podcast series.
Oh, you want to see what I've bought for the Christmas tour?
Oh, because you want to see what I've bought for the Christmas tour.
Well, the important thing is that people need to get out there and see you live on the tour, and we wish you the best of luck with all of that.
Thank you so
Bryony,
much.
Alice, thanks very much for joining Half Hour Mentor.
Thank you. Much. Thanks.
What an absolute inspiration those two are. Despite Bryony's yearning for the return of Little Chef restaurants and Alice's obsession with Frank Kidson. As I mentioned in the interview, I first came across them when I went to the Costa Festival in Ibiza last April, where I also met my last guest, Festival Programme Director John Watterson. Their stage presence was captivating, and their in-between song banter was just as entertaining as the excellent musicianship and interpretation of the traditional folk songs. If you're listening to this close to the episode release on the 9th of December 2023, do go to their website bryonyandalice.com and find out where they're playing. You can find a link to their website along with their individual sites in the show notes. Also, as been customary with my interviews with musicians, I've curated a half-hour Spotify playlist of their songs. Be warned though, there are some really catchy tunes in this short compilation. But do get to see them live if you can, even if you don't think you like traditional folk, and I'm using air quotes here, because they put on such an entertaining show. My thanks go to Bryony and Alice for taking the time out of rehearsals for their interview. Well, that's it for today. We have one more interview left in this series, and it features a titan of the TV and news industry, but you'll have to wait until next week to find out who that is. If you're new to the series, check out the back catalogue, which you can find on all major streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. Until the next episode, bye for now.